Hey guys, so if you're watching this video, you probably want to know, how am I going to increase the number of sales I'm getting with my online marketing campaigns for my limo business? So there's lots of different ways to do that. I'm not here to teach you how to optimize your Google Ads account. I do that on other videos. We work these days with lots of larger operators who spend a lot of money on ads, and it just so happens I got off the phone with one of them, and I was pretty blown away because I had gotten a few text messages in the last few days. This always happens at the end of the month. Hey, the results haven't been what we were hoping. Hey, the leads really suck, so on and so forth. When you have 130 clients, that's going to happen, right? But I got a text message from a client who is getting like almost 400 quality leads a month. And I got a text from him and I was like, what is going on here? So I responded right away. And in this video, I'm going to go over what we talked about and why I was having a conniption fit over, okay, I get why a few of these others messaged us, but this guy. And actually, this is very common for the whole industry. If you are watching this video and you own a limo business that's doing over 7 figures a year, or even over $750,000 a year, and you know your marketing's kind of working, your sales is okay, but you don't know how much money your marketing's making you, number one. I guarantee you, all of you watching this don't know that unless you're a client of ours, in which case you should know how much money your marketing's making you. But how much is your marketing making you? And then how can you really turn up the dial? With marketing agencies, look, they're responsible for about half the battle, right? The other half is really converting the leads into customers. And I'm going to talk about that today because that is what my client was having issues with. And I'm guessing if you're watching this, you might be having issues with that too. Many limo businesses do. And by the end of the video, you're going to know how this one little tweak that is going to be mind-blowing can completely transform how many leads convert into sales by easily 50 to 100% by just making this one change. Okay, so I pick up the phone, and when I saw this text come in, so this operator, he's based in the Midwest, he's not in a very competitive market, and like I said, he had 380 leads in the previous month, and out of those 380 leads, 360 of them, I wasn't really sure. He did not update. Were they quoted? Did they book? What happened? Did you mark them as lost? We use a CRM called High Level, and because we want to know how many leads our clients are getting, and more importantly, how many leads they're converting into customers, how many leads are actually qualified. And so out of those 380, very few had been actually categorized. And so I get on the call with him and we get to talking. So this is another thing. When you've been in the industry long enough, and I get it, in any business, I'm 8 years into this business and I can already see me at another 8 years. I hope I'm doing something different because look, the entrepreneurial types, we get bored, right? We get bored easily. We get bored as same old, but that's really where gains usually come from, is just, doing the same thing over and over and over and over again and making it better and better and better. I could tell this guy, he's just not really into it anymore. And so that's probably the biggest problem. And because any advice I give him, he very well won't follow it, right? So anyways, first, those 380 leads, if they're not categorized, or only 20 were, so like 5%, then I don't even know, were these good leads, not good leads, what happened, oh no, we're booking them. Okay, well, and then I start looking and I see a Sprinter lead, right? And it's, let's see, so it's 5 hours, right? They wanted 5 hours, so it was an hourly Sprinter job. He quoted $150 an hour plus gratuity. So that's probably going to be about a $900 job, right? $900 job. the extent of the communication was 3 letters. That's it, right? And so for those of you larger operators out there, and for you small operators that are just getting going, here's what you have in your favor, and this is such a huge deal, is you actually care and are highly motivated. If you're new to the industry, if you're new to business, you care a lot more. So this is just common, where I've seen a lot of operators that have been doing this a very long time, they just don't care as much. And so they want it to be as easy as possible. And I get it, right? Who doesn't want to use, an online booking tool, which, by the way, I think is a great idea. If you're doing sedan, SUV work, airport work, point to point, that sort of stuff, sure. Automated quotes, automated booking, automate it all. If you get a quote request for, an SUV for 12 hours, well, that might be, that's over $1,000, right? That could be $1,500 to, $2,000 depending on where you're at. So that's a big job. And those sorts of jobs, really anything I say Sprinter and above, pick up the phone, especially if it's several $1,000s. Then you definitely want to pick up the phone, because so much value can be added over the phone. For example, I have a client in Arizona. He does just buses. He owns 4 buses. He got a call from a coach. Coach said this is the 3rd person he had contacted. He got quotes from 2 others, didn't speak to them. He submitted his info, and they just sent him a quote via, email, text. My client called. He picked up the phone and he called. Guess what? So this coach had a problem. He had to, they had to drive 500 miles to some other town, and then he had to get them hotel rooms because DOT regulations, right? Can't drive more than 12 hours. It's just not legal, right? So they were just going to get hotel rooms and then drive back the following day. Well, so my client, who's, by the way, very hungry, very, very hungry, he's just a killer on the phone. But when I say killer on the phone, he just cares a lot, and you can tell he cares a lot. So he got creative. He said, well, hey, look, why don't I just fly out one of my drivers instead of you paying for all those hotel rooms? They can snooze on the bus. And so long story short, saved probably, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8 grand on hotel rooms. And get this. So the guy said, let's do it. I want to move forward with you. And guess what? He didn't even get from him yet. He didn't even get a price. The other 2 operators, I like this little board here. The other 2 operators he got a price from, and my client, Jacob, no price, right? But he said yes, right? Because he already knew, even if he is more expensive, this guy just saved him money. This guy's creative, and this guy actually cared enough to pick up the phone. This is a coach. What do coaches do? They coach teams. And sometimes I guess they book buses, and this coach probably knows other coaches, right? I always get asked, Mark, how do I get those big, $150,000 contracts? I want those big ones. Can we just do marketing? I only want $1 million contracts, leads for $1 million. Yeah. Because those people are really online searching. No. For contract work, and this is a side note, for big contracts, they're not going online looking for vendors, okay? So get that idea out of your mind. You want to actually land those jobs when a coach inquires and you get a form submission and they're looking to move, a team from one point A to point B. Pick up the phone. Pick up the phone and call. And I'll just be honest, overseas people can work. If they really know your area, you want them to be easy to understand. No issues with accents as long as you can understand, right? But for those of you who are doing larger vehicles, where the whole industry seems to be going to larger vehicles, let's be honest. So if you're not making plans to buy a larger vehicle, you probably should, just because all this automated driving stuff. But I digress. If it's a bigger vehicle, usually that means a bigger dollar amount. And I'm going to say this right now, anything over $1,000, call. Anything 1K plus, give them a call, because you do not want to miss these ones. And many times there's logistics involved. If it's a wedding, right? If it's a wedding and you're not picking up the phone and calling, like, you just don't care about money that much. That's all there is to it. And so anyways, that was one really big thing that we discussed. And so I know you guys are dying to find out, Mark, we really want to see what this reporting you talk about looks like. So let me go ahead and show you that here. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about when I am talking about seeing how much money you are bringing in. So here's the problem. Most people know this number, right? These numbers, right? That's your credit card bill, right? So when I'm talking about tracking your numbers and reporting, what does your report look like from your agency? Because what I want it to look like is this. So what you're seeing here is the inside of a high-level account where the reporting is set up. And here's the thing. Here's what most people have. Most operators have this. Those of you watching this that are doing Google Ads, you know how much you're spending. So this is, of course, the last 7 days. You know how much you're spending, right? You might know your cost per click, click-through rate, all this stuff, right? Impressions. Here are the things you don't know. You don't know that. You don't know. You probably know your cost per lead, but you might not know your cost per sale. That's actually still relatively easy to figure out. But what many of you don't know is this. And out of all of this stuff, this is by far the most important. What I am pointing out here is your return on ad spend. So meaning this campaign, this is 3 different campaigns, which you can't really see right now, but this is 3 different campaigns. The one at the top is Black Car. The one at the bottom is Sprinter. And the one in the middle is local Black Car only that we're targeting. And by the way, again, this is 7 days worth of numbers. So it's really best to look at the last, month or 2 or 3 months. But this reporting has really just gotten dialed in recently, and we're rolling this out to everyone now. But this is what you want to know. You want to know how much you're making from what you're spending. I've done probably 1,500 different sales calls, talking to operators, telling them about what we do here at Limo Marketer. And by the way, this isn't a pitch for Limo Marketer, even though if you want to apply, just go to the description below and click the link. Anyways, it sort of is. Because look, here's the thing. I guarantee you, any agency you're working with right now, I don't care who you are, you're not seeing this, because we are far better than most agencies. It's not a very competitive niche, so it's not that hard. But you want to know this, and here is part of the problem with hiring agencies is, or here's the problem with getting this info. The problem with getting this info is this relies on our clients entering this in. We can automate a lot of it, but at the end of the day, this is a client who's serious, right? They're entering in their sales, and so we can see 11 leads, 7 sales here, 18 leads, 4 sales here, which is interesting because this campaign, these are all local leads. These are all people in his market. And so I would actually think his close rate would be higher for those. Also, these local clients, the average ticket size is smaller. Actually, that makes sense. You know why it's smaller? It's smaller because these are all round trips, right? This is probably just a lot of one ways. And then, look, that Sprinter job netted him some big money. And so it's crazy how that one job, now he got, 9 leads for, it looks like, kind of a high cost per lead, but we'll get that down. one job. Hopefully this lead to sale close rate gets better. But wow, that one job changes everything, right? And now just from that one job, his numbers are higher. And so these things, while they're kind of different, one, I'm talking about, sales and tracking. This is an example of someone who's taking things very seriously. Okay, they're using a CRM and they are keeping it updated with every single lead they get. Was it a qualified lead? Did they book? If they booked, how much for? Because we want to see what this is. Okay, so back to the other thing. So here's what I told my client, and that is that his CSRs equal inside sales reps. So, and I don't know why this industry doesn't understand this. I know that looks like a C kind of. I don't know why this industry doesn't understand this. Okay? If they're taking calls and leads, especially if they're getting a lead and calling, they are inside sales reps. Because here's the problem. Here's what most of the industry does. Here's an example. This the first client I was talking about, $6,000 a month. And he is outsourcing his call center or his calls and who handles the CRM, which is fine. So he's paying $10 an hour for that. And it's not so much about the hourly wage. It's that this is it. There's no not hourly plus. What's the word I'm looking for here? Commission. I might have spelled that wrong. Commission. So if you're watching this and you don't handle the leads yourself and you don't have a partner that handles these leads, so there's no business owner handling the leads, and you're having someone else that you're paying hourly and there's no commission, you are flushing money down the toilet. Because think about this. What is their incentive? To not get fired, right? But all things being equal, wouldn't they rather get a booking for you, right? Wouldn't they rather make boss more money? No. I mean, they don't want to be fired, right? And to be honest, it is more work when you get a booking, right? Because then they have to do other things, right? If they send a quote and the person doesn't book, they have to do less, right? So it's kind of like saying, hey, I want you to do more work for me for the same amount of money. And by the way, you're probably thinking that I'm, just this rich American fat cat who's just like, Scrooge McDuck diving into his, money pit, money vault every night. And so they probably think that as well. What do you think? They're going to just, crush it for you and make nothing themselves? No. So here's what I suggest doing. So first off, if you're already paying someone an hourly wage, you're going to want to have a conversation with them. And you're going to want to say something like this. Look, I've been looking at the numbers and I really want to make a strong sales push. And right now, your compensation, I want you to be able to make more than that. But I want to incentivize you properly. And so I can't keep paying you. Let's say, whatever, it's $10 an hour. I can't keep paying you that. Let's say I can pay you $6 an hour or $5 an hour. Do like half or something. I can pay you that much. And then you're going to want to figure out, look, this is different for everyone, right? But you're going to want to figure out what is what is possible for them to, if they really crush it, maybe make 20 to 25 an hour. It's got to be an exciting amount, okay? And so they're making $5 an hour now, so they need to do 15 or 20 more an hour. How many sales, what percentage would you need to pay? What's possible, right? And so This is all going to depend. So this guy, just real quick. So 400 leads a month or 380 leads a month. So 13 leads a day, right? 13 leads a day. Leads a day. Let's just say his average, is, I don't know, because he does black car and he does bigger vehicles. Let's just say it's 500 a lead. So 500 a lead, or, each job is worth an average of $500, right? So that's $6,500 a day. Okay. What should he be closing? At least 1 in 4, right? So 1 in 4 would be 3. We just call it, so 3 jobs. So 3 jobs times 500, right? So 1,500 in revenue they bring in. All right. So, and they work an 8-hour shift, right? And of course, there's going to be probably 2 shifts. So let's pretend there's 2 shifts and they both get about half, right? So each one between the 2 people are bringing in 750 in revenue a day. Okay, and you're paying them $10 an hour, but they're going to go to $5 an hour, right? They're going to go to $5 an hour. And so they go from 80 a day to 40 a day. So they need to make up another $40 a day, right? Okay, now we're getting into some numbers that they can potentially hit. Now, a stretch goal would be them booking 1 in 3 jobs, right? Because if they book, this is them booking 1 in 4. If they book 1 in 3, this will be more like $1,000 a day. And so what if you were paying them, let's just say 5% would be an extra 50 a day. So yeah, that would put them at 90 a day. And that would only be 40 or, yeah. So let's say 7.5%, and you could do up to this much. You do 5%, and you really want to spend time thinking about this, right? So if they're bringing in 750 a day, and you say, look, I'm going to give you 10% of whatever you bring in. That might be more than makes sense for you. Maybe you do a commission only, but whatever. Divided by 10, that's 75 a day, plus their base is 40. And so now they're making, 115 a day. So they're making 25 more a day. Now, what you can also do is you can do what's called a draw. And I'm going over these because many of you probably have never really dealt with a sales sort of thing. So a draw is where they get a minimum, and this should usually be an amount that's small enough that they really, if this is all they made, they wouldn't want to work there. So let's say we're the same person. Let's say their draw is $40, $40 a day, so 5 an hour, so 40 a day. And how a draw works is, let's say, same scenario, right? So they're bringing in, let's say, $1,000 a day, and they get, let's say, 7.5% or 10% commission, right? So they're making $100 a day. But let's say that they make $40 dollars a day. Well, how it really works is it goes by pay period. So it might not be $40 a day. It's instead of 40 a day, let's just pretend it's $200 a week. Okay, so 200 a week, or even 400 every 2 weeks, and so they make a minimum of that amount of the $200 and so if they, let's say, do 3,000 in sales that week, and they get a 10% commission, they make $300. But if they only make 1,500 in commission, if they only make 1,500 in sales that week and they get 10%, and they only would have made 150, they still get 200 because that is the draw. So it's like a minimum, but they would start each week at 0 and then build commission from there. So look, there's a lot of ways to skin this cat, and you're going to want to play around with it, play around with the numbers. And a lot of this depends on what's your lead volume like, right? What are the hours? How many reps do you have? It comes down to a math problem. And, the best reps are going to be commission only. That is really where it's nice to eventually be at, commission only. Here's the problem. Starting there is difficult because they need that initial motivation. And they should be making sales right away, actually. They should be making sales right away. And so another thing you can also do is up to, let's say in a given month, if they bring in, same sort of example, let's say they're bringing in, they usually bring in 20,000 a month. Okay. And so up to that amount, you give them, let's say 7.5% commission. And then anything over that, they get a 10% commission. So for 20,000 plus, they get that. For under 20,000, they get 7.5. And then maybe 30,000, they get 12.5. So this is kind of the things you want to play around with. But if you own a limo business and you are not paying commission, you are throwing money down the drain. If you own a limo business and you are not using a CRM and making sure that thing is updated and exactly, and this is really, to pat our agency, team on the back again, this is really what you want to see here is you want to see this revenue, you want to see this ROI, because I guarantee you, if you're doing online marketing right now, you know what you're spending. You don't know what you're making. And that's why you're keeping your budget low. And that's why, that's why there's such a thing as, oh, what's your budget a month? Oh, $200 a month. 200? Why not 2,000? And the reason is, it's always the same answer. It's because I don't know how much I'm making. So find out how much you're making. Start paying your sales reps. I'll see you on next week's video. Oh yeah, hit the link below and contact our team if you want to start looking at numbers like this and even better.